Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel and today I'm going to do a little bit of a 2024 wrap-up video. Mostly I'm just going to talk about, I guess, a top 10 list. I don't really have much to say about my 2024 stats. I did end up reading 93 books in 2024 total. I thought it was only going to be 92, but I did end up my hold on the final Murderbot book, System Collapse, came in on like December 30th, right when I was about to go on a nice long road trip. So I was able to listen to it because it was an audiobook hold. So I was able to listen to it on my road trip and I was able to get it done on December 31st. So I was able to sneak in that last one there like at the very last minute. So I got 93 books read in 2024. Yeah, most of them were fantasy, followed closely by science fiction, followed slightly less closely by like historical fiction, classics, queer fiction, LGBTQ focused fiction, and some nonfiction. I read mostly women and non-binary authors. I read a lot of authors of color. I always try to, diversify my reading in that way as much as possible, and I'm usually, pretty good at it. I like to read stories written by people of color. I like to read stories written by women. I like to read stories written by queer people, so that's not usually a problem for me. So overall, I'm quite happy with my stats for the year. I'll probably do some sort of a video at some point in the next several weeks, focusing specifically on my series, updating sort of my series tracking since the last time I did a video about my series tracking, which I think was in July. So I'll probably do that because I did finish a number of series, and I also started a number of series in 2024 that I want to continue in 2025. But I did finish a number of series in 2024 as well. Like, I read all of the Murderbot books in 2024. As of December 31st, I completed the Murderbot series, so that's cool. So I'll probably do a separate video just for the series stuff that I'm working on, to talk about that. Otherwise, I don't really know that I have a whole lot to say about my stats for the year. I just wanted to do a kind of top 10 list, I guess. These are 10, I guess, my 10 favorite books from the year. I would not say they're the 10 best books I read all year necessarily. I think my personal favorites and what is like objectively the best are not always completely in alignment. I tend to think my tastes run more towards stuff that's, objectively good and objectively well written. But like, that doesn't necessarily mean that my favorites are also the best. And so I like to make sure that I'm drawing that distinction, that when I'm talking about like my 10 favorite books, that's what I mean. They're my favorites. They're not necessarily like objectively the best, or I don't think they're necessarily objectively the best. They're just the ones that I especially liked, books that I found to be particularly memorable, books that I am still thinking about, even potentially months after I first read them, right? That's really what the favorites are for me, is the books that I'm still thinking about months and months later. So yeah, I just want to get into that. So this list is not ranked. It is in no particular order. This is just the list of books as I was sort of slipping through my list of books that I read in 2024. These are the ones that I'm like, oh yeah, that one, that one, that one, and that one. So yeah, that's in no particular order my 10 favorite books of 2024. The first one I wrote down was Cahokia Jazz by Frances Spufford. I've raved about this book on a couple of previous videos, but I haven't done so in a while. If you're not familiar, or if you haven't watched those previous videos, Cahokia Jazz is a hard-boiled detective novel. That's straightforwardly a hard-boiled detective novel. It's extremely well written. If hard-boiled detective novels are your thing, if a Dashiell Hammett is your thing, if Maltese Falcon is your thing, if A Big Sleep is your thing, Cahokia Jazz might very well be your thing. It has an added interesting quirk of being an alternate history book as well. It's set in the city of Cahokia, which no longer exists in our timeline, but in this timeline, it still exists, and it is in fact a major metropolitan area in North America. If you don't know about the city of Cahokia, I highly recommend you look it up. It's a relatively large city in, I think, the 15th, 16th century here in North America, in the vicinity of like St. Louis, Missouri. So it's and it's now a major archaeological site in North America. A lot of indigenous people lived there. So yeah, Cahokia Jazz is set in the city of Cahokia. And so it's a very interesting alternate history story that is also a hard-boiled detective novel, and is very much playing with those genre tropes, and it was excellent. It was one of those books that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I didn't know it, I had never even heard of it, and then I saw it mentioned on an awards shortlist, and I thought, that sounds really interesting. And so I just picked it up completely on a whim from my local library, and I absolutely loved it. The prose is lush and descriptive. The characters are very well drawn. The politics and the racial tensions are always seething underneath the surface. The atmosphere is incredible. It's just a great story and has amazing world building, and I just loved it. And I still think about it months later. So that's the first one. The next book on this list is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. This is more of a historical fiction novel with some fantastical or supernatural elements to it. I know some people are not necessarily into that. Some people either want just straightforward historical fiction, and some people just want like secondary world fantasy, full-on secondary world fantasy, and there's some people that don't particularly appreciate a historical fiction novel with just a little bit of magic sprinkled in it. But I personally really like that. I love incorporating these sort of slightly supernatural elements, and The Warm Hands of Ghosts is particularly up my alley in that it is a World War I historical fiction novel, which I find World War I to be fascinating and terrible and horrific and very interesting to read about. And I think, again, the characters in this book were incredibly well drawn. The dual POV structure of the book, of the brother and the sister, were very, very good. I thought the supernatural elements were very well done, very well incorporated into the book, into the story. And yeah, it worked for me. And Katherine Arden's prose is very good. I enjoyed it a lot. So The Warm Hands of Ghosts is another one that, again, I still think about it because it's great. It's haunting. It's lovely. Yeah, it was just a thoroughly enjoyable read. The third one I have is A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. I could also include the other one in this duology, A Psalm for the Wild-Built. The Monk and Robot novellas are, they're just excellent. What can I say? Moss Cap is, my son. I would die for them. I would die for both of these characters. They're wonderfully existential. The characters are very vivid, and rarely have I read such a short story that had stuck with me to the extent that I seriously consider the purpose of my own existence after reading it. And still do at times. So yeah, the Monk and Robot books are really excellent. I love them. Great addition to my reading this year. The next on this list is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. It was hard to pick one Hobb. Hobb has been with me all year. I've read now the first 6 books in the Realm of the Elderling series as of like January 3rd. But I wanted to pick one that was like a standout, and I do really think Royal Assassin is that one. For me, I like a dark second chapter in a story. Like Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars original trilogy movie. My favorite new trilogy Star Wars movie by a long shot is The Last Jedi. Two Towers is probably my favorite of the Lord of the Rings. So like Royal Assassin is, you know, it's good, right? It's good. There's a lot of character development here. This really takes what she started in Assassin's Apprentice and makes the stakes much higher and makes us understand Fitz as a character so much better. And yeah, I'm still thinking about it. So Royal Assassin. And then my fifth entry in this list is A Desolation Called Peace by Arkady Martine. This is the second and final book in the Texkalan duology, which began with A Memory Called Empire. This is a sci-fi sort of space opera-y duology of books. Really excellent. Really, deals a lot with issues of colonialism and what it means to be colonized and what it means to try and maintain your culture and your way of life in the face of a large expanding empire that is trying to swallow you up. And what it means also to kind of love that culture, to love the culture of the empire that's trying to swallow you up, and to have really mixed feelings about it, because our main character does have very mixed feelings about it. And she falls in love not just with the culture of the empire, but also with a person from that empire. And it's a really interesting story. I really enjoyed, everything about it. Arkady Martine's prose is wonderful. And yeah, it's a really good book, really good world building. I love a good space opera once in a while. It was super enjoyable. The sixth book on this list is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I think in light of the United States election in November, this becomes even more prescient and more important, I think, than ever. I think the most important takeaway from this book for me was, because I was kind of expecting this book to be a little bit fetishistic about books as objects, because it's about book burning, right? So I was expecting it to be a little bit fetishistic, but it is not, in fact. And in fact, Bradbury makes it a point to say that the really important thing about books is the ideas and the knowledge that is contained within them. And so even if the physical object is destroyed or no longer exists for some reason, as long as somebody is carrying those ideas or that knowledge within them, then it's okay. It'll be okay as long as somebody takes the time and the effort to continue to carry on those ideas, which I think is probably more important than ever going into 2025 to keep in mind. But yeah, the importance of just being able to share ideas with each other is, I cannot understate it, right? It cannot be understated how important this is, or cannot be overstated how important this is. So yeah, especially recently, I've been thinking, a lot about this book. After that, it's Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So this is my first Dickens that I've read, and I read it, and I loved it. I actually really loved it. It was a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be, which I think is why it's on this list in particular, why this one is on the list in particular, because it is really funny. It's much more readable than I expected it to be, and was much funnier than I expected it to be. So yeah, it was a really great book. I was really engrossed from beginning to end. And yeah, the psychological honesty of this book was really striking. And I'm looking forward to reading some more Dickens, hopefully in 2025. So that's Great Expectations. And then, yeah, the number 8 on this list, I put All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is another one where I read the entire Murderbot series in 2025. Was there one that was a particular standout? I don't know. All Systems Red, probably, the first one, which introduces us to Murderbot and introduces us to the world and some of the main characters, and to Murderbot's sense of humor, and to Murderbot's love of media. Yeah, Murderbot has been a really great companion for me in 2024, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed all of the books in the Murderbot series, and highly recommend them. So yeah, that's All Systems Red by Martha Wells. The ninth book on this list is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a book that, as I've said in my review video of it, you know, my best friend was like, I can't believe you haven't read Rebecca at this point in your life. And once I read it, I realized what they meant when they said that. Rebecca is very much up my alley. It's very sort of limited POV. It's you know, it's creepy, it's atmospheric, it's lush, it's romantic, it's a little bit gothic. It's great. I love it. Yeah, I just love the atmosphere. The final image of this novel, I'm not going to say what it is, but the final image of it is something that will stick in my mind for a very long time. It's extremely memorable. So yeah, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And then the final book on this list that I thought is particularly memorable is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This is a fantastic semi-epistolary novella about two women on opposite sides of a time war who fall in love with each other. And yeah, it's very poetic. The most memorable thing about this book is the prose that really sticks with you. I can go back and read any of the sentences or any of the letters that these two characters write to each other and just sit in that prose and just revel in the beauty of it. It's great. I loved this book. Yeah, so This Is How You Lose the Time War. So those are 10 books that are, I guess, my favorites for the year, standouts for the year for me. It's really hard to narrow it down to 10, and it's definitely much harder to try to rank them, so I didn't bother to rank them, because as far as I'm concerned, comparing some of these books with each other and trying to determine which ones are better quality than others or whatever, or are more favorites, is like, that's apples and oranges. It's impossible. I can't do it. I loved all of them for various different reasons. I think they're all really good books that are all worth your time, potentially. I do have a couple of honorable mentions. These didn't really make the list, mostly because a lot of them were rereads, but I did write down Anne Leckie. I read all of the Imperial Radich books in 2024. There's 5 of them, I believe. There's the original, the trilogy, and then a couple of standalones that are set in the same universe. Again, a couple of them were rereads for me, but they're really great. I love Anne Leckie's world building and character work. Her world building especially is just incredible. It's so complex, but she really draws you into the world and gets you invested in these really sort of complex cultural things that are going on all the time. And the other honorable mention this year for me is Terry Pratchett. I've been working my way slowly through the Discworld novels. Most of the ones that I read in 2024 were rereads, but though I hadn't read them in quite a long time. But I really love all of the Discworld novels. They're so enjoyable, they're so fun, and they're so full of Pratchett's complete understanding of humanity, and and so they're just always a delight to read a Terry Pratchett book. They make great palate cleansers. Most of them are relatively short, and they're also quite fun, quick reads. So they make great palate cleansers in between sort of other heavier books. So yeah, both Anne Leckie and Terry Pratchett sort of get honorable mentions in my top books of 2024 list. Other than that, that's about all I really have to say about that. There's a bunch of other books that I really liked in 2024. Again, I've read 93 of them, and the vast majority of them I enjoyed. Like, as I've said previously, and I will continue to say, if I finish a book, it's because I enjoyed it. The only times I don't enjoy books, when I don't enjoy a book, I usually just DNF it, and I don't bother with it if I'm not enjoying something. So like my average star rating on Storygraph is like 4 stars, or even a little bit higher than 4 stars. Because for me, like, a book that is good and that I enjoyed is usually going to be a 4-star book, and that's most of the books I read. Right? A 5-star book is a book that really stands out and exceeds my expectations. A 3-star book is a book that I enjoyed but maybe had some issues with. And anything less than a 3-star, I'm not gonna bother with. I'm gonna dump it. I'm gonna not finish it because life is too short. So, you know, I enjoyed pretty much all the books I read in 2024. All 93 of those books were worth my time, in my opinion, because obviously I took the time to read them, so they were clearly worth my time. So I enjoyed all of them. There's a lot more books that I could have mentioned on this list, but I did my darndest to narrow it down to just 10. That was really hard. And I've already read a couple bangers just in the first few weeks of 2025, so I'm looking forward to what 2025 has in store and all the great books that I'm going to be reading in 2025. So yeah, I'm not sure what my next video is going to be exactly. I have purchased a lot of books recently, so I should definitely do a haul video at some point, because my January book purchasing spree has happened, and I have a lot of books that I've purchased, particularly given that I was like, I'm going to try not to buy as many books, or I'm going to be more mindful about the books that I buy. But then, of course, I did say, even in that video, that I was going to go on a book buying spree in January, and I have indeed gone on a book buying spree. So this will probably be it for me for almost, for the year, hopefully, or at least until like my birthday in September. So I have a lot of books that I purchased that I can do a haul video about. Yeah, and more review videos to make, probably. And yeah, I do want to still make a video about the movies that I'm planning to watch in 2025 and the Criterion Challenge. And I would also like to make a video about the series, my book series tracker video. So still a lot of videos to come, frankly. So yeah, what were some of your standout reads from 2024? Have any thoughts on the ones on my list? Do you have some recommendations for me based on this list? By all means, let me know in the comments, and yeah, we'll like, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.